We just had an emergency ban list, but did it really affect anything? Let's talk about it. So I want to start this off by saying, no, this isn't a ban list reaction. I've already seen what's in it. This is just kind of my thoughts and what I believe it's going to do for the game. It wasn't a big list in terms of things getting forbidden, things of getting limited, semi-limited. We had more things come off the list actually than things that got hit. And we're gonna start off with the first card that got hit on the list. It went from unlimited to completely banned, and that's Curious, the Lightsworn Dominion. It's a Link 3 monster, pretty generic as far as materials goes. It's definitely not restricted to the Lightsworn archetype. I have no real opinion on this. It definitely could have been hit earlier, maybe in the last format or two when it was actually a problem. And what made it a problem is it was used to send Eradicator Epidemic Virus and then linked off into Griffin to be able to set it. Now, why is that a problem? Because Eradicator Epidemic Virus allows you to not only look at your opponent's hand, but then look at the cards they draw for the next 3 turns or so, I believe, depending on what card type that you draw. I believe that's spells, and discards them to the graveyard. So if you're looking for any sort of spell card to help you get an advantage, help you take a lead or some sort, it's going right down the drain from there. But this format wasn't really a problem. Tier limits were definitely using it in the last format or so, but they've since stopped using it with since getting the Ishizu cards. So it's a little late for a hit, in my opinion. It definitely could be a future proof of some sort, or maybe Konami's just really late. It's really hard to tell at this point. Again, I have no real opinion on it. In the long run, I guess it's a good hit. I'm not mad about it. Definitely will keep that advantage for certain players who play dominantly dark decks. The second card that got banned, Mystic Mine. The whole world is ecstatic about this hit. I'm gonna go ahead and take a hot take on this topic. I believe it's a necessary evil for this format. Yes, it was annoying. Yes, it's difficult to deal with at times if you're not running the right cards. It just kind of gets you stuck, and yes, it did prolong matches longer than they should have. But when we're talking in about a tier 0 format where the top deck out resources you like crazy, I think it's necessary in order to help you stall for a few turns if needed, help you try and get on track, and help you try to get back into the game. From what I recall of the last YCS Pasadena, there was some Mystic Mine here and there, but there weren't, I don't believe any of the top decks were running Mine. Definitely Mine Burn wasn't topping. More than anything, it was a bigger problem for the casual decks, right? If they're not running spell and trap removal, they're kind of stuck, and then kind of waiting to see what the opponent do. Either they mess up so they can take advantage, or they're just kind of stuck until they get decked out. Again, I'm not saying I don't think it should have been banned. It 100% should have been, but a lot sooner. As far as for being in a tier 0 format, it's a necessary evil. With that being said, I think it would have helped to have it more than a few other options that Konami decided to release. Now, moving on to the only card that actually got limited, Herald of the Orange Light. I believe it was a good hit. Definitely a good hit towards tier limits. Unfortunately, Drytron was an unfortunate casualty. But let's figure out not a lot of people are playing Drytron right now, and not if you're being competitive anyways. Herald of Orange Light was a good hit because Tearlament had enough going for it. The last thing it needed was more negates. If you finally had a monster card to stop them in their tracks, whatever it may be, maybe even counter some of their plays, the last thing they need was not only a negate for that, but also a way to get their play started by discarding the Ishizu cards. So with that being said, I don't have much else to say about that other than it's a good hit. Did it need to be completely banned? I don't think so. Probably won't run it at 1, and if they do, then it's good luck opening it kind of thing. At that point, they might try to find something better to replace it with. And that, believe it or not, was all the cards I got hit. Just 3, 2 completely banned, 1 to limited. Like I said, there was a lot more coming off the list than there was getting put on the list this time. And yeah, that means there was no hits directly to tier limits other than Herald of the Orange Light, and not even all the deck list played it. It wasn't exactly like a staple in 100%. There was definitely players that chose not to play it to begin with. Going to from limited to semi-limited though is Lyrilisk the Recital Starling. I believe that's how you say it. It's an okay card. It definitely helps out Wing Beast cards. I keep hearing Tri-Brigade might be able to do a lot with it because they're true DD Crow. So having it at 2 rather than 1 might be able to have an effect. It's something I'm not too concerned about, nothing I'm too worried about, definitely nothing I'm excited about. But it's something I'm definitely willing to wait and see what it can do. It would definitely be interesting if it could give Wing Beast decks that much of a boost. And then going on to straight unlimited now. The first one on the list is Teller Knight Polemis. I shouldn't even try to pronounce that, to be honest. It's an Xyz card. It went from banned to straight unlimited. I believe it's been banned for a while, so if you don't know this card, I'll give you a quick rundown about it. It is a level 4 Xyz warrior monster, light. Attack 550, defense 2600. You need 2 or more level 4 monsters in order to make this. So its effect reads as follows. Once per chain during either player's turn, you can detach 3 Xyz materials from this card. Special summon from your deck 1 monster that is 1 rank higher than this card, except a number monster. By using this face-up card, you control as the Xyz material. This is obviously treated as an Xyz summon. And any Xyz materials attached to this card can also become Xyz materials to the summoned monster. You can detach 7 Xyz materials from this card. Skip your opponent's next turn. So why is this card even at all relevant? I wasn't around when the card was initially banned, when it was used at first. What I keep hearing is it was mainly used to get Cyber Dragon Infinity out. So not only can you take your opponent's attack position monsters, you also have a negate as long as you have Xyz material on that card. But here's the thing, the rank 5 pool is now a lot bigger than it used to be back then. So there's definitely a lot more plays that can be done with this card. You do need to use at least 3 resources. Get at least 3 resources on the field in order to not only summon it, but be able to use that effect. You only need 2 to summon it, but if you really want to use its effect, you need 3. And I don't know if this card was around back in the day. I assume not, otherwise it probably would have been used more often. But the reason people are maybe getting a little worried about this card is another Stellar Knight rank 5, which can actually be quite crucial to the game if people find consistent ways to get this out, especially in mirror matches. So that card's going to be Stellar Knight Constellar Diamond. That's another Xyz level 5 effect monster. This guy is a light worm, attack 2700, defense 2000. So if you don't know about this card, and I definitely didn't know about it when the card got released, and it wasn't until I watched other videos and other people talk about it that it came to my attention. So initially you need 3 or more level 5 light monsters in order to create it. However, with the card that just got released, you can just use that one. Effects reads as follows. During your main phase 2, you can also Xyz summon this card by using a Stellar Knight Xyz monster you control as the Xyz material, except Stellar Knight Constellar Diamond. Attach all those Xyz materials to this card. While this card has Xyz material, neither player can send cards from the deck to the graveyard, and any card that returns from the graveyard to the hand is banished instead. During either player's turn, when an opponent's dark monster activates its effect, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, negate that activation, and if you do, destroy it. Yeah. And all you need is 2 level 4s to create the other Stellar Knight, the one that just got released. I'm not gonna say his name again, because then you can just use that card to slap it on top and just summon it. That is going to be devastating if people can, for Telements and for a lot of other decks. If more casual decks are definitely going to have a tough time dealing with it, that's for sure. Now, the part that I'm also worried about that I haven't heard too many people talk about is Ptolemaeus. Again, I shouldn't be pronouncing that name. The Xyz that just got released is secondary effect. Detaching 7 materials to skip your opponent's next turn. Now, why is this concerning to me? Because Rongo Minion used to be a thing, and people found a way to get however many materials you needed to use that thing. And Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, I believe, is still unlimited. And Rongo Minion was also a level 4 Xyz monster, so if people can find a way to summon that and get all these materials on it, I don't doubt it won't be long until people can find out how to use this card as well. Is it going to be more... Is it going to be a more strategic move to skip your opponent's next turn rather than just summon Diamond and prevent them from being able to send anything to graveyard to play? Depends on the deck, I suppose. If you don't really need to rely on your graveyard too much, Diamond's definitely going to be the way to go. If you need a few turns to finish off your opponent without them doing anything, and you can summon Gossip Shadow and this Stellar Knight that just got unreleased, I'm worried, but I'm also excited to see if someone can pull it off and how consistently. Now, moving on, Fire Formation Tenki went from semi-limited to unlimited. I don't remember doing much at 2. It'll probably definitely help Beast Warrior Monsters decks coming back to 3. Obviously, definitely helps with that consistency. Personally, I don't think it'll matter too much unless Tri-Brigade and Lureless actually starts becoming dominant, then that might be a thing. But I definitely think it'll help Tri-Brigade players. No other real opinion on that. That was okay. I think it was okay for it to come off. It's been coming off slowly off the list. I think it was alright to move on. Metaverse went from limited to unlimited. With no mine, Mystic Mine, I suppose it's okay. It's definitely doable. You could turbo out Necro Valley. There's not really a lot of other field spells, at least to my knowledge, that you can use to really counter your opponent that way. Except the only one that comes to mind is Summon Breaker. I don't remember the exact text on it, but I believe it has to do when your opponent successfully summons their second or third monster for the turn. It immediately becomes main phase 2 or end phase, something like that. I'll be sure to post the actual text and the effect of that card up here somewhere if you haven't seen it. But other than that, other than Necro Valley and Summon Breaker, I don't know what else you can use other than archetype field spells to really help you along, but a lot of them don't help too much during your opponents. Pacifist might be a thing. Might help out a lot actually, but I don't actually know how it works. I've just heard things about it. I know they have a pretty gnarly field spell. Dimensional Fissure went from limited to unlimited. Not even semi-limited, not even testing the waters, just here you go. And Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos went from limited as well to unlimited. Both of these cards banish. They're both annoying. Konami said, here, have fun. Deal with tier limits that way. My opinions on these, they don't help many decks. Not a lot of decks can run them effectively and still be able to do what they need to do. If they did, they would have been running Dimension Shifter, right? That's been a thing that's definitely helped against tier limits. Flonderies is definitely gonna take advantage of that, I believe. I know there's probably a few other decks out there that I don't know, that I can't think of, that'll probably be able to take advantage of it. I just don't know any on the top of my head. But I know that there are less decks that can actually use those effectively than those that can. And that goes back to my hot take with Mystic Mine. So it definitely seems like on this list we traded Mystic Mine for Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos. Again, I believe more decks were able to use Mystic Mine to help them get back into the game if possible, than decks that are going to be able to use Dimension Fissure and Macrocosmos effectively. All in all, I think it'll affect both players if they try to use it and they don't know how to work around it, which in turn might even cost them the game. But again, that comes down to you as a player and your skill base, right? It comes down to you testing and really figuring out what you can and can't do with those cards. But again, I don't think it was the best hits. Releases, I should say. Especially with a Dark World structure deck coming out soon. So it's really got me scratching my head about that. Dark World relies a lot on being sent to the graveyard. Might hurt the deck to release these two at this time. With all that being said, I was looking through the ban list. Another card that I believe that should have come off the list to help us combat tier limits is Called by the Grave. Another hot take. I know a lot of people would rather see that card banned. along with a few other cards that people believe that could have been hit. Personally, I think it could have come back to 2. I think it's okay to come back at 2, maybe even 3 to help combat all the graveyard effects the tier limit has. Just about anything and everything it does runs in the graveyard. Having 3 to negate and banish those cards would definitely help any player combat them. Could they use it as well? Absolutely. Would they need to find a room for it for an already tight deck? I believe so. So again, my hot take, we need more counters against tiers that work effectively for multiple decks, not just a few decks, especially when we have with light and dark monsters being so common, especially tier limit being dark heavy. Bystials do the same thing, right? As Called by the Grave. So personally, I feel like they could come back. They could come back at 2 or 3. But again, that's just me. So we had this so-called emergency ban list, right? Because we're either on the brink of or at a tier 0 format. But I don't believe it really did anything. I don't believe it did much at all. Except Konami releasing a few cards saying, here, have fun, deal with them that way. Personally, I feel like they could have done a few other hits, maybe put some of the Shizu cards from 3 down to 2, just to hurt the consistency a little bit. Because let's be real, they're not going to outright ban the Shizu cards or the tier elements. They're reprinting an unlimited set of Power of the Elements, so all the tier elements cards are there, and they still need to sell Mavens, and all the Shizu cards are there, so those aren't going to get hit completely or banned. I do think they could have brought some down to 2 or maybe even 1 to help the consistency. The deck would still be good, it just wouldn't be as consistent doing what it does. But let me know, drop a comment down below, let me know what you think. What do you think of my opinions? Am I completely wrong and just out of my mind? Or do you agree with anything I said? Do you have different opinions? Do you think other cards could have come off to help us combat this tier limit tier 0 deck? Or do you believe anything else should have been hit? Drop a comment down below, let me know. Thanks for sticking around for the conversation. Hit that subscribe button if you like this kind of content, and we'll see you next time. Peace.